So today, I'll go ahead and do a planted aquarium. I'm going to do this on the cheap. I'm not using any of the large scale production stuff that's on the market. I'm just using what you can get cheaply from local hardware stores to do this, aside from the plants. The first thing I'm using is some sphagnum peat moss. This entire bag cost me, I think, $4 at Tractor Supply. It's a pretty good deal. You don't need a whole lot of this. You don't need a bag nearly that big. But what I generally like to do is I like to do just a little bit of water down in the bottom to keep the dust levels down. And you just want a nice even sprinkling across the entire bottom of the tank. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some more of this. See, there's just nothing there, you know. It doesn't even come above the line of the plastic edging here. So you want just a very small amount. This is something that will get up into the gravel substitute that I'm using. It really helps with exchange rates on the plant roots, helps with picking up nitrogen and things, and it's a good supplier of actual nitrogen compounds without having an overload that's going to muck up your tank really badly. Next layer I'm going to use is what's available to me right now. Usually I use Safety Zorb from Tractor Supply. They haven't had any of that in months, so what I'm using this time is automotive oil absorbent from CarQuest, and you can see up here 100% Fuller's Earth. That means that this is baked clay. This is a little bit siltier than the stuff from Tractor Supply. It's a lot less silty than like Special Kitty litter, which breaks down pretty quickly. So this is an okay substitute. I don't like to use it when I don't have to, but it's what I've got, so it's what I'm going to use. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this open, and we'll start adding it in now. The very bottom layer, I like to mix in a little bit with the peat, just so that the peat has a little bit better of a chance to really get into the plant roots. So I like to make a bottom layer that's about ½ inch deep. It's just a mixture of both of them. This helps to make sure that it's spread pretty evenly. It helps to make sure that the peat isn't just going to pack down really hard, because it's going to have some of the baked clay gravel in there to keep it a little bit more separated. It'll give it a little more room for the roots to grow easily this way. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover this with about 2 inches of this gravel. It breathes pretty well. It allows water through pretty well. So because it's kind of a large grain size, I don't have to worry about it becoming an anoxic environment down at the bottom like you would if you're going to do sand. If you're going to do a sand layer, you want to do it very thin over the top of this. That does cause problems when you go to clean it, but you'll be much happier with a thin sand layer so that you don't end up with a big, disgusting layer of gunk in the bottom of this that's growing sulfurous bacteria that rot your roots. So I'm going to go ahead and add about 2 inches of this now. Okay, so you can see here, got about 4 fingers in height. There's a gap under the tank, so that leaves probably about 3 inches of actual filler, counting the ½ inch of stuff on the bottom. Now normally, you want to rinse this stuff real well first, because it is a little silty and it will muck up your water, but this is going to sit for a few days. I'm going to do several water changes. You're going to see what happens when you don't rinse it. And this is going to be a pretty slow water flow, but it's still probably going to make a big mess. This is one of the Amazon swords that I have. This one sent out a runner. You can see it's It's got another one forming back there. It's forming some babies along the runner here. Eventually those will sprout root and I'll be able to cut them off and plant them someplace else. I've got another 3. This runner here without the top is the one that I removed the ones that I'm planting from. There's another one here. I got 6 in total off of this one. This is a 30-gallon tank. You can see the size of this sword once it's full grown. So this is what I'm putting in the 4 corners. This big bushy guy here in the back between these 2 lava rocks. This is what I put in the center. The redness is something that it just does when it's young. When it's small, you can see that all the redness disappears. We've got another one here in the corner over here. They're very bushy, very pretty plants. They really fill things out very well. See here how incredibly mucky this water is. Giving it a couple days, most of this will settle out, but I'm going to be actually changing this water out a bit. You would want to make sure that you rinse everything first, but because this is a multi-day project, I haven't really worried about it. What I've done is I've just stuffed this filter here completely full of float batting, which will pick up all of the particulate in the water and bring it back to crystal clear about 8 hours. This is a multi-day project, so letting it clear up the water overnight while I wait for other things to finish is not a big deal for me. You'll see in just a minute how much better the water looks when I start adding the stones and things after it sits overnight tonight. Picked up some flagstone at the local gardening center. You can see this is a bit dirty here. A bit of stuff coming off of these. So it's a good idea to wash this kind of stuff first. Again, doesn't really matter for what I'm doing. Next thing I'm going to be adding is some Manzanita. I'm using this like a tree. The problem is this wood is too large for me to boil. It's currently not waterlogged. It's pretty soft, so I mean it's dead and dry. It's pretty rigid right now, but it's pretty soft once it gets wet. And what I want to do is something that is a lot easier while it's rigid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to force it to sink. I'm going to be attaching it to this rock, which I'm going to submerge underneath my substrate. I'll be using JB Water Weld. This is aquarium safe. I have used it on repairs on some of my plywood tanks while the tanks are live, while there's fish in there. I've never had any sort of issue. I've never had any bad results from this at all. It's especially water safe when it's cured. I don't know that JB Weld would say that it's aquarium safe, but companies never say anything's aquarium safe, just for their own protection. So we'll go ahead and set this up now. So this comes in long white tube. All you do is just cut a section off. It does stick horrendously to latex, so I generally recommend people avoid that. I haven't used the vinyl before. I don't know if it'll work or not. I just ran out of nitrile gloves and the closest store didn't have any. So it's pretty simple to mix. You can see there's two layers. There's a white outer layer and a gray inner layer. You just fold it like you're chewing a piece of gum until it's a uniform color. This stuff hardens in about 5 minutes, 10 on the high end. So you do want to do it pretty quickly, and you only want to mix up the amount that you're actually going to need. So, got my rock, got my branch. Manzanita is a hardwood. It is perfectly safe to use. You don't see it a whole lot in stores or anything. You tend to see cholla or the mapani or things like that. But it is a good wood to use. You can buy it online if you don't have some locally. Generally, you want to boil it and remove the skin. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to have a large amount of water change in this daily, so it's not going to matter. So you take it and you just push it in someplace where you have kind of a rough texture. Sometimes it doesn't stick real well. Very frequently it'll want to stick more to your gloves than to what you're working with. So the thing that I found that helps with that is just a little bit of water on the glove, and then it tends to roll off. Press it up into this rock. If it doesn't stick to whatever you're doing, grab some sandpaper and lightly sand whatever it is to give it a texture so it has something to grip to. It does not have a whole lot of hold to it by itself, so you want to make sure that whatever you're doing has something else supporting it to start. You also want to make sure that you're not in a position where it's going to glue itself to a table or something. So plastic wrap or something like that can be a good idea. That looks straight enough for me. I think that's going to be a believable tree once it hardens. So this takes about 15 minutes before it gets pretty hard. 20 minutes, it's rock hard, safe to move around, safe to bury. So I'm going to give this a little while and I'll come back. Now that my base is hardened, I'm going to start adding leaves. What I'm doing here, I'm just taking some of the vine-like plants that are available in some of the pet stores, wedging them where there's a split, and just loosely wrapping it around. Just to make a bit of a tree bunch. I'm going to go ahead and do this. This kind of time-consuming, takes a little while, but I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Okay, that makes a reasonably realistic looking tree. This stuff will grow out and fill itself in a little bit more as it goes. The parts that do the leaves of this plant don't get longer than they are now, so there's not going to be a point when suddenly it looks funny because it has something that's much larger than leaves would be. So the next thing is burying it so that this is all actually underneath the water level. This stuff is soft enough, and all you really need to do is push it down and move it a little bit, and it'll all just sink. Let me get all this other nonsense out of the way. got a tree. You can see here at this point, the tree is covering up everything else. So I'm going to grab my Amazon sword down here, my big one. I'm just going to pop it out, and I'm going to move it over here to the side. It'll be more of a front feature than a back afterthought. And remember, because you have the peat moss on the bottom, you want to get your roots and push them all the way down into the glass in the bottom of the tank. That'll give them a really nice area to grow in. Looks fairly tree-like from every direction. So, like I said, we'll let this sit overnight, at least a couple hours, clean it up, let the water currents do what they're going to do, and I'll come back and clean it up, and we'll continue from here. Okay, so it's been a couple hours. Let's clear it up a bit. We're going to keep going with this. Got quite a few of these critters. I don't remember exactly what they're called. I'll be putting the names of all these things that I'm using in here in text during editing. I'm going to be trying to use these to make kind of a little bush. They're a bit long. Usually, you find some place that has these, they're bundled together. They don't have roots or anything, they're just bundles. Usually the bottoms of them are not in real great shape by the time they come in. I'm just going to clump these together pretty well. And I'm just going to snip off the bottom 3 or 4 inches. So end up with something that's about 4 inches long. Add a rock back here. That looks the best. We're going to sink this entire bunch of these in all at once. Get kind of a little bush behind the rock, and I'm just going to keep that trimmed so that it stays short. Lastly, because I've got some free space under the tree over here, I'll be adding in some of these. These don't get a whole lot bigger than this. Putting this on this side because these are pretty tolerant of low light. Not going to care a whole lot that most of the light is being blocked by the tree here. Alright, so we'll give that about another 6 hours to clean the water up. I'm going to maybe do a water change or two. And we'll come back and see it when it's not all murky. And here we are after 5 days of settling, 5 days of growth. I've gone ahead and added some fish in. That's it. Takes a couple days to run through. These kinds of things are pretty simple.